March 1917 Revolution. After undergoing numerous economic and social issues, widespread food shortages, and military failures in the First World War, people took to the streets to participate in mass demonstrations. Beginning in Petrograd, demonstrators called for the overthrow of the Tsar. Tsar's troops were sent in to quell the masses, including a crack group of the Tsar called the Cossacks, but they refused to attack the strikers and instead killed their commander and joined the revolution. After Petrograd, other major cities were quickly taken by the revolution, and Tsar Nicholas II abdicated, ending the 300-year Russian autocracy, and a new government was put into place. The Provisional Government, March 16, 1917. An emergency provisional government was created immediately after the Tsar's abdication. Its goal was to get elections up and running so an actual government could be established. The Provisional Government saw a constant power struggle between the liberals and Marxists who had opposing views on the future of Russia. The feeling of illegitimacy due to the nature of the temporary government led to constant indecision. Members of the government who couldn't recognize the catastrophic condition of Russia, along with the misjudgment of the mood of the people in regards to the war effort, all led to its failure and the October Revolution. April Theses, April 16, 1917. Vladimir Lenin, who had been in exile in Switzerland due to his revolutionary ideas, was smuggled back into Russia by Germany to cause turmoil. Lenin saw that the revolutionaries were not willing to push the revolution further, which prompted Lenin to create the April Theses. In them are 10 directives, the main ones being a call for communist revolution, immediate peace, seizure of gentry land, all power given to the Soviets, and seizure of factories. Lenin developed a slogan of peace, bread, and land, which highlighted the problems which the provisional government couldn't settle. Lenin didn't get much attention, but he did gain the recognition amongst the Soviets and Bolsheviks as their leader, and highly influenced the October Revolution from this. Kornilov Affair, summer 1917. The Kornilov Affair was a supposed attempted coup by the commander-in-chief of the Russian army, Lev Kornilov, to take over the provisional government, which was under the leadership of Alexander Kerensky. Kornilov claimed he was acting on the instructions of Kerensky to restore order in Petrograd, but when Kornilov's forces neared Petrograd, Kerensky gave out a national telegram claiming Kornilov planned a coup to install himself as a military dictator. Kerensky got the support of the Bolsheviks and the Soviets to stop the supposed coup, decreasing the power of the Tsar's former army and arming the revolutionaries. Although there's still no evidence supporting either Kornilov's or Kerensky's claim, it still showed the weakness of the position of the provisional government. October 1917 Revolution. The October Revolution saw the Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, with their now armed forces, the Red Guard, taking control of Moscow and Petrograd and arresting the provisional government and seizing power in a bloodless coup. The Bolsheviks put in place their own government, marking the beginning of the Soviet Union. New government, winter of 1918. The Soviets established a new government called the Council of People's Commissars, the main leaders being Lenin, Leon Trotsky, and Joseph Stalin. The new government takes steps to introduce communism, with many changes like factories being under the control of workers' committees, banks being nationalized, and peasants being able to seize the land. These were the first steps to creating a new communist nation. Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, March 3, 1918. Lenin felt as though the new government would not be able to deal with fighting the war, so he sought a peace treaty with the Central Powers. On March 3, 1918, Russia signed the peace treaty of Brest-Litovsk with Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire. Russia would no longer have to worry about fighting foreign powers and could now deal with its own internal affairs, but at the cost of a high amount of land. War Communism, summer of 1918. During the summer of 1918, a system of war communism was implemented, with its key features being the nationalization of the industry, the implementation of compulsory labor, and the gradual reduction and replacing of private trade with rationing, as food was needed for the Red Army in order to fight those who opposed the rule. The Civil War, 1918 to 1922. The Civil War saw the Red Army defending the newly formed Bolshevik government from the White Army, or the White Movement, which was a loose confederation of various anti-Bolshevik groups and from other interventionist groups. There was some intervention from Allied nations, but never really any fighting with the Soviets. The White Movement was unable to remove the Bolshevik government due to a lack of leadership and support. The Reds also had full control of Russia's industry and most of its population. New economic policy, March 1921. With the Civil War nearing an end with only a few remnants of the White Movement left, war communism was not going to be able to allow the recovery of the Russian economy. Lenin introduced the new economic policy, or NEP, which allowed some private trade, allowed peasants to sell surplus, and allowed workers to purchase factories under certain conditions. Although it was a return to some capitalist ideas, NEP was a success and returned the economy to levels from before 1914. Treaty of Rapallo, 1922. The Treaty of Rapallo was an agreement between the Soviet Federative Republic and Germany, which aimed to mutually rebuild both countries' economies and establish good diplomatic relations. Some say that Russia manufactured illegal war material in exchange for steel manufacturing technology. Regardless, both were defeated and outcasted nations, helping each other were the first steps they could take to rebuilding. KelloggBriand Pact, 1928. The KelloggBriand Pact of 1928 was an agreement signed by a host of international countries, including the country now known as the Soviet Union. The pact denounced the use of war to resolve disputes or conflicts of whatever nature or of whatever origin they may be, which may arise among them. This would hopefully ensure security, and also was a part of the USSR beginning to participate in Western affairs. 5-Year Plans, 1928, 1933, and 1934. After the death of Lenin, Stalin came to power. He came up with a plan for economic growth over a period of 5 years. His plan concentrated on developing heavy industry and collectivizing agriculture. Although the first plan did meet its goals of radically improving production, it came with a price of high amounts of human suffering. Another 5-year plan was introduced in 1933 with the same goal in mind, but it proved to be too severe, and it was modified in 1934. The USSR now was being transformed into a major power. Normalization, 1932 to 1935. The USSR was now recovered enough to start building up its military and began to participate in Western affairs whenever it had the chance. Its built-up military would be able to defend from nations who would oppose them. Also, in 1934, the USSR joined the League of Nations, which were further steps in reintegrating itself into foreign affairs. The Purges, 1934 to 1941. The Purges, led by Stalin, saw many of Stalin's enemies and opposition removed. Lots of old heroes from the revolution were charged for treason and executed. 1 out of every 5 officers in the Red Army was executed. Over 750,000 were executed in total, and many others were sent to gulags, which were hard labor camps. NaziSoviet Pact, August 23, 1939. Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler had secret talks in which they agreed not to attack each other or support any other nation that might attack them if a war were to occur. This gave Hitler the promise of a war on one front and promise of peace on the West for Stalin.